Good morning and welcome back, everybody, to Brew Pod Between the Lines podcast. This is your host, Caden Atzett, and a really good and fun start to the series against the Houston Astros here for the Milwaukee Brewers. A couple of very fun games that we saw both on Friday and Saturday night. A couple of very competitive teams right now going at it. A couple of teams with very strong lineups up and down the batting order, and some pretty strong pitching on either sides as well that we've seen so far in this series. So, going to do a little bit of what we typically do here. Going to cover some of the game talk from both Friday and Saturday. Got a couple of more additional things that I want to touch on. Some individual players that we've seen kind of seeming for the Brewers right now that they're kind of peaking. Hopefully going to be staying pretty consistent here throughout the season. But just a lot of fun that we've seen from some surprise players so far this season. A lot of really good things for the bullpen. Couple things there that I want to touch on as well as we go through the games. So yeah, just in general, just some really exciting things. And with that, just kind of diving in. So really talking about the Houston Astros to begin with. I mean, this is a team to start the season. We're off to really a pretty rough struggle, which is a big surprise for the most of Major League Baseball from what we've seen from them for the last several seasons, seems like. But, of course, they're going to be right there. Kind of knew that this slow start was probably gonna turn into some kind of run mid-season or, sometime later on in the season, which we've really just honestly kind of been seeing here recently. Astros have been playing a lot better baseball here as of late. We're going into this game and into this series on Friday with a 5-game winning streak, heading into the series playing some really strong baseball after, like I said, a really rough start to the season. So everything kind of clicking for them offensively. Pitching starting to come around after a couple of rough starts for some of their starting pitching. Some of the numbers I think here in this series are kind of I don't know, I would say just incorrect based on what typically you'd see from these guys. I think, early on in the season you can have a couple of rough games that really rough up the ERA, really kind of distance yourself from looking how you typically would look at these pitchers statistics-wise. So I think everything's starting to click on all cylinders for the Astros kind of coming into this series, and we've definitely seen some very competitive play from them so far in this series. So with that, we'll kind of dive into exactly what we've seen and what's, kind of go through our typical breakdown of what's been going on in these games. So starting with Friday, Brewers call on Freddie Peralta to get the start on the bump in this one. And just another struggling appearance for him on the mound for the most part. And the one thing that's really kind of standing out to me I was talking about this on the last episode with his previous start, he allows another start with quite a few hits in this one. He finishes with a line, goes 5 innings pitched, surrendering 5 runs on 8 hits to go along with 1 walk and 6 strikeouts in this start. So not too much of an issue, I would say, with command. I think, a limit of walks in this one, which we had seen a struggle with him against the Chicago Cubs. We've seen that struggle with him against the Pittsburgh Pirates early on in the season. So at least wasn't getting hit around on that end, but ended up surrendering those 8 hits, which, like I said in the previous episode, is really a pretty high number for his standards and for what we've been used to seeing from him in the past. Usually, he's a type of pitcher that's a very low, has a very low batting average against for hitters. Typically, doesn't give up a lot of those hits or hard contact for that matter. But in this start, definitely a little bit of a struggle. A couple of those hits were home runs. One from Jeremy Pena and one from Myers of the Houston Astros. So just a little bit more of a struggle from the Brewers' ace so far. Hopefully just a little bit of a rough patch that he's been going through in these last few starts. Hopefully we're able to see him bounce back with a couple of good starts here coming up. But just one thing that I wanted to touch on, once again, Astros looking up and down their lineup, I honestly see, you got Altuve, you've got Tucker, who's hitting at a very high rate right now. You've got Alex Bregman, you've got Yordan Alvarez, Jeremy Pena. I mean, all these guys really up and down the lineup would be your typical 3-4 hole guys in an average MLB roster. So you've got these guys up and down the lineup. This is a very difficult Houston Astros lineup that the Brewers pitching has been having to face. And overall, I mean, until that 5th inning and that 3-run home run surrender to Jeremy Pena by Freddie there, all told, I mean, besides obviously the home run to Myers as well, I think he did a pretty good job with command, just giving up those hits, letting some balls, over the middle, missing locations a little bit. Seemed to be kind of the struggle in this one for him. So still some positives as much as we can in this one from that standpoint, but hopefully able to bounce back with a couple of more positive starts and some more starts that we've been accustomed to coming from Freddie Peralta here as we advance into the next few outings for him. But offense did pretty good, I thought, in this one. Got to the Astros starter Hunter Brown, who's really had a pretty high struggle so far this season. Ended up getting his and earning his first victory of the season. He ends up going 5 innings pitched, surrendered 4 runs on 5 hits while recording 3 walks and 2 strikeouts. And the Brewers offense, they also get to him for a couple of runs and a couple of home runs as well to go for that. We see Jake Bauers stay hot. He collects his fifth home run of the season. He sent one out in the 2nd inning to right field, so good to see him continue to swing a hot bat. Kind of going back to that Pirates series and even back to that Cardinals series where we saw a home run off of Sonny Gray. Really starting to seem like he's filling a pretty good role in the middle order for the Milwaukee Brewers. We saw him scattered down in the 8th hole where he collected that grand slam against the Pirates. So right now being moved around the lineup for Pat Murphy, kind of playing some good baseball no matter where he is scattered into the lineup right now. And definitely something that we need to see as he's needs to kind of be enhancing this role right now of having some extra playing time at first base with Rhys Hoskins being out. So just some good things to see from him to be able to hit really well offensively, getting some power out of his bat. So just good things to see him staying hot in this one. And then how about Joey Ortiz? This is a guy, I'm going to touch on this a little bit here towards the end of this episode. But boy, is he swinging a hot bat. I mean, he gets another home run in this one, a 3-run home run, which at that point had put the Brewers up 4-2 in this game. That's his 5th home run of the season. And I think, honestly, besides William Contreras' opposite field ability, I think Christian Yelich has a very good ability to go opposite field. Bryce Terang has showed a lot of that. But Joey Ortiz has one of the better opposite field approaches from a hitter that I have seen, specifically on the fastball, which typically is the pitch that these hitters are going to drive to the opposite field. We saw twice, back-to-back at-bats, that he took fastballs up and away. He drove them to the opposite field, and it really looked like his approach was looking there, going up to the plate, and looking to go to the opposite field, and with authority, too. I mean, both of these batted balls that he had, his first at-bat resulted in an opposite field double, and then this 3-run home run that we saw to the opposite field, both of these balls scorched with, being over above 100 miles per hour off of the bat, so just some really good approaches that we're seeing from Joey Ortiz, and with consistency. The numbers are showing that with consistency, he is becoming one of the more consistent and better Brewers hitters that we've seen right now in the lineup. Like I said, I'll dive into that and into those numbers here towards the end of the episode, but just wanted to touch on that a little bit. He's been really good offensively. I think he's done a really good job cleaning up his defense at third base, that we saw a little bit of a struggle there at the beginning of the season. So really becoming just a full circle player for the Brewers right now, and hats off to him for another really good game. And this one ends up with 3 hits, which, like I said, we'll dive into a little bit more of the overall statistics for the season for Joey Ortiz here as we dive into the end of the episode. But I think the big thing in this one, the big struggle, I think the big thing that caused the Brewers to lose this one, moving on from Joey Ortiz, was their lack of ability to hit with runners in scoring position once again in this one. Joey Ortiz's home run was the only hit that they collected with runners in scoring position, and the offense ends up going 1 for 8 in this category. So just some struggle from that standpoint. We've seen a little bit of that on and off here after really doing a really nice job there early in the season with that. Still one of the better teams so far in the major leagues with hitting with runners in scoring position, which if they're going to succeed, this is going to be a stat that we need to continue showing and continue improving on as the season goes on. But I think the big at-bat that really stood out to me in this one, with runners in scoring position, we jump to the 8th inning here. Sal Frelick, with 2 outs and a runner on first and second base, had seen 5 straight sliders from Brew, the pitcher and reliever for the Houston Astros, and ended up taking a 6th slider in a row. Towards the end of the at-bat, he was in a 3-2 count, had actually gotten ahead in a 3-1 count, took a really good slider on the inside part of the plate to make it 3-2, and then takes a 6th slider about knee-high, a little bit up, right down the middle. Called third strike, ends up ending the inning. And this is something I know I have touched on a little bit here, seeing that Sal Frelick almost seems like he's just not seeing the ball well, seems like he's having an issue kind of reading the ball out of the pitcher's hand, but it was just interesting. I think from a batter's standpoint, I think what you need to be doing if you're going to be taking pitches is you're supposed to be learning everything. You're supposed to be learning something with every pitch. That's, even going back to Little League, even going back to, batting in high school. This is what batters are supposed to be seeing. You're supposed to be making adjustments and learn something based on every pitch, especially at the major league level and even college level. It just seemed like Sal Frelick didn't even have any intention to swing the bat in this specific at bat. It seemed like that he was almost up there looking to draw a walk, and it just seemed like it was just interesting from my standpoint. He took the best pitch of the whole at bat right down the middle, and it's not like Abreu in this at bat specifically was really mixing his pitches. Maybe Sal Frelick was guessing a little bit, assuming that he wasn't going to throw a slider on that last pitch. But this is just specifically a situation where I think that you've got to swing a bat. Whether he's had a couple of games before this with back-to-back home runs. You're hoping that he's coming out of the funk, but still maybe a little bit of struggle seeing the ball out of the pitcher's hand, and definitely just a little bit of a red flag in that at-bat specifically, where it just seemed like in that instance he had to get the bat off of his shoulders, at least take a hack at it, and hope that it gets put in play, and hopefully in that case gets a base hit to tie the game. So definitely a little bit of a frustration there, but really that was the only negative thing that I saw. Bullpen did a nice job. We saw some scoreless innings from Koenig, Peguero, and Milner, and I thought for Peguero specifically, I thought this was one of his better outings of the season. The slider was really sharp, had really good location, living down in the zone, which is typically where Peguero has a majority of his success with that sinker-slider combination. So other than that, with the hitting with runners in scoring position and that at bat from Sal Frelick, I thought overall it was another really competitive game. Once again, I've talked about this before, another one of these games where the Brewers lose and they are just one hit away from being able to tie the game or even put themselves ahead. So overall, I think a really good game. Tough to see them lose this one, but really good to see the two teams go head-to-head at one another and battle it out till the very last pitch. Of course, Josh Hader comes in, goes 1-2-3 in this one to end the game for the Houston Astros and earn the save in this one. Would have been nice just to get a little fork in the side for the Brewers to come up and get a comeback off of Josh Hader, or at least tie this one and get a blown save, but nonetheless, good to see him have some success on the opposing team and ended up collecting the save to secure that 5-4 victory for the Astros. So moving on from that, going into Saturday's game, another really exciting game between the Milwaukee Brewers and Houston Astros. Brewers bounce back in this one. They end with the victory 4-2. And Brewers going up against Justin Verlander in this one. He previously had a terrific start against the Detroit Tigers, where he went, I believe it was 7 innings pitched with no earned runs. So definitely kind of finding his leg after a little bit of a struggle to the start of the season. But I thought Brewers did a really nice job against him that we'll dive into here a little bit. Bryce Wilson, he gets the call on the bump for the Milwaukee Brewers after he's been struggling a little bit with command specifically. And specifically, Brewers also right now lost the last 3 starts for Bryce Wilson when he was out there. Not Bryce Wilson specifically earning the loss, but Brewers eventually towards the end of the game at least coming away with losses in this one, so looking to kind of change the narrative. And that's exactly what happened in this one. Bryce Wilson, he ends up going 4 2/3 innings pitched, He gives up 2 earned runs on 5 hits while recording 3 strikeouts and 1 walk, and unfortunately ended up getting pulled out of the 5th inning there with 1 out remaining, which would have put him on the board to record the win in this one. But Pat Murphy, which I think was a good move. He's playing matchup with Kyle Tucker coming up for the Houston Astros, who has been really good at the plate for the Houston Astros, been one of the better hitters in the American League so far this season, with, I believe it's 12 home runs or 13 home runs so far this season. I'd have to look once again. I know it was one of those 2 numbers, but really good start to the season for him, especially power-wise. So with the tying run and him coming up to the plate trying to play matchup, brings in Hobie Milner, and another really good job from him. We see him record the out and then go an additional inning, and that is now 15 straight scoreless outings for Hobie Milner out of the bullpen. We saw a little bit of a struggle in spring training. We saw a little bit of that struggle come out for him early on in this season too, but really just a really nice job for Hobie Milner in the last 3 weeks to a month of baseball for him. He's done everything and more of what Pat Murphy has asked of him so far this season, so really good things from him. Hope to see him continue, as he's been one of the pivotal guys for, both lefties really, and I guess 3 lefties you could say, in Jared Koenig, who's been up and down a little bit this season so far. But between Brian Hudson and Hobie Milner's work so far this season, they have done impeccable jobs, lefties out of the bullpen for Pat Murphy. They've been really reliable to come out of the pen, record outs without surrendering runs, and frankly, for the most part, without getting into too many stressful situations on the bump either in these ones. So we did see Brian Hudson in this one. He went an inning, actually did get into a little bit of trouble in that 8th inning, but was able to work out of it, didn't give up any runs, and then another really nice inning for Peguero in this one. So he seems like he's starting to throw the ball a little bit better as well after struggling in this one. So really good things to see from them. And then Trevor McGill, he comes out, he earns his 6th save of the season after a really good inning, ended up giving up 1 hit to Myers for the Astros, pretty much just kind of poked the bat out there. Blake Perkins almost makes a spectacular diving play in center field to end the game, but they pinch hit, comes up with the tying run for Victor Caratini for the Houston Astros, ends up getting him looking with a 100-mile-per-hour fastball. So really good job from him. Trevor McGill continues to impress me out of the bullpen so far this season. He's been another really good guy, a lockdown guy, and really, I think for the most part, the bullpen for the Milwaukee Brewers has been a bright spot for them. Going into the season, I was a little bit concerned at some of the guys. I know we were having a lot of guys return, but obviously missing Devin Williams so far this season. And just it was going to be interesting to see how these guys performed, but they have done just as good, if not better, I think, so far this season from where they were. We've seen some struggles and some ups and downs from, I think, a little bit of everybody so far at some point in the season. I would say despite, I guess, Brian Hudson's about the only guy that we haven't really seen struggle at some point, doing really good out of the bullpen. But overall, these guys have really done a nice job fulfilling their roles in the bullpen and continue to have a lot of success overall. So offensively, jumping back to talking about the Brewers facing up against Justin Verlander, the future Hall of Famer for the Houston Astros, has had a really good career. In this one, ended up passing Max Scherzer for 11th all-time on the strikeouts list as of right now. So congrats to him on reaching a really good milestone for him, and just another big milestone for his career, as he's had several throughout his career and his tenure in the major leagues. But big 5th inning for the Milwaukee Brewers. We're down at this point 1-1 or 1-0 heading into this inning, and a really big inning for the offense. Ended up having another good at-bat from Joey Ortiz with a leadoff single. Saw a good at-bat from Jackson Chourio and Sal Frelick, both drawing a couple of walks. We saw Blake Perkins. He gets a sac fly to tie the game at 1-1 apiece. And then with 2 outs, I think the at-bat of the year so far this season from who other than William Contreras, the MVP of this team, and the MVP arguably so far of the season so far at this point, I think, in the major leagues, putting together just some more spectacular numbers, both offensively and defensively, at the catching position. but he battles with Justin Verlander for 13 pitches, fouling off pitch after pitch, fastball after fastball, and finally, after fouling off several fastballs on the outer half of the plate, finally gets one up in the zone, more center cut for William Contreras, and sends one to left center field, 428 feet, and just really proved to the point that the batter has the advantage, it seems like, after a long at-bat like that. Seemed like he was doing exactly what I was just talking about in that at-bat with Sal Frelick on Friday's game. It seemed like every pitch against Justin Verlander, he was learning something, and even going back to the previous at-bats, he had struck out on a fastball earlier in the game. He had flown out to center field on a fastball in the at-bat before this one for William Contreras, so it just seemed like he was really taking the knowledge that he was gaining from the previous at-bats and just from each previous pitch in this specific at-bat. So just more MVP things that we've seen from William Contreras, an MVP at-bat for sure that we saw in this one. And like I said, I really think this was probably the at-bat of the year. It was a battle. It was already exciting, and he had done a really nice job. I think in the least case, even if he were to be out at this point, Verlander had thrown, I think this was his 42nd pitch of this inning alone. So this was certainly going to be his last batter and likely get him out of this game. But no other way to send him out of the game with a go-ahead 3-run home run for William Contreras. And just another great at-bat and huge offensive day for him at the plate once again, which is no surprise so far for us at this point in the season. So yeah, just a really good game, really fun game overall, and specifically that thing. I think moving on from that, I think we also saw some really good at-bats from Jackson Chourio in this one. I think we've seen some more consistency from him. He went 2 for 3 with a walk in this one and a couple of big pivotal at-bats, specifically with that walk in the 5th inning. So really good to see him kind of hopefully come out of this funk that we've been talking about, kind of getting into it with having some struggle as a rookie and coming into it with as young of an age as he is. But this goes back, if you looked kind of at his AAA numbers early on in the season, he actually was struggling. There's a lot of people out there that believe that he really hasn't dealt with much struggle in his career, but the stats say otherwise. He actually was struggling to begin his AAA career last year for the Milwaukee Brewers, but you move into those June, July months, he was really starting to snap out of it. And right now it seems like hopefully that's what we've kind of seen so far from him is he had that struggle, pitchers made an adjustment on him, but now through the early work that he's been getting in games with William Contreras and Willy Adames, really hopefully able to kind of snap out of that funk and get back to hitting with more consistency and provide more of an impact for this offense for the Milwaukee Brewers. So like I said, really fun couple of games, a lot of things to talk about in just those 2 games. It really amazes me how much fun and excitement it is and how much I get excited to just talk about all the things that took place in these 2 games, all the things that stood out to me. And so that's kind of what I was doing there, just talking about all the important things and the awesome performances that we've seen really on both sides. I like to pay respect to the other team and to the other players that had great games as well. So I love to praise them, just my love for baseball in general, and I love to talk about all aspects of that as well. So yeah, moving on from that, we'll have the series finale tomorrow, rubber match of the series. Brewers call on Colin Rea right now. He's 3-1, looking to bounce back after a couple of rough outings. He's got a 3.45 ERA, so hopefully able to see him put together a solid outing again against a really potent and really good offense for the Houston Astros. And Brewers offense will be facing Spencer Arrighetti for the Houston Astros. And really some rough numbers. One of these guys, again, who really had a couple of big struggles with outings, with giving up a lot of runs early on in the season. So right now you look at his numbers, 1-4 with a 7.52 ERA. But I don't believe those numbers. I don't look at him and say, I think the Brewers are going to put up 5-6 runs and get him out in 3 innings, as much as I would like if that were to happen, and it could be the case, as much as I would love for that to happen. I don't really see that. I think he's a lot better pitcher than what his numbers are showing, so I think it'll be another close game, another competitive game, as it always seems to be for the Milwaukee Brewers, but also facing a Houston Astros team that has been playing really good ball as of late. So and we'll be finishing up that series before heading out to Miami to continue the road trip against the Miami Marlins. So that kind of finishes up with the game for later today for what we're looking at ahead for. And then last thing, I know I had talked about this a little bit more, and I was wanting to come back to this with the numbers for Jory Ortiz. And like I said, I've said this before, he's really kind of solidifying his role, I think, in the Milwaukee Brewers system. Obviously acquired him and DL Hall in that trade from the Baltimore Orioles. And I still think, and I still believe that the Brewers really could have gotten a lot more than what they did out of Corbin Burnes. I think a lot of Brewers fans and a lot of us out there believe that it was kind of a small sample for what the Brewers could have received in trade for Corbin Burnes. But right now, I mean, at the beginning it was like, okay, DL Hall moving into the starting pitching, rotation, having a little bit of struggle, but need to give him time, still a young arm, still getting, adjusted to moving into the starting rotation after pitching out of the bullpen last year. Jory Ortiz had a little short stint with, in the MLB with the Orioles last year. Hadn't seen a ton of MLB batting, or MLB pitchers for that matter, so hadn't seen a ton of MLB at-bats at this level. But right now, I mean, and not to say that just the way that Jory Ortiz is playing right now, makes up for what Corbin Burnes did for this team in his tenure with the Brewers, or what he could be doing right now if he was still a Milwaukee Brewer. But, I mean, he's making the most out of his playing time right now. He's doing a great job. Definitely I think probably the best rookie that we've seen so far this season for the Milwaukee Brewers, by no short mean. We've seen really good things from Jackson Chourio at times. Robert Gazer's off to a really good start, obviously going 2-0, but I think still a little bit of a small sample in just the 2 starts, so we'll kind of see with some more consistency as he gets some more experience and more outings for the Milwaukee Brewers. Oliver Dunn has also, obviously, he's shown his struggles with now being sent down to AAA. We've seen some other guys kind of come up and down, Tyler Black, which I'm sure we'll see him again at some point. But I think Joey Ortiz has really solidified himself in this Milwaukee Brewers roster. Right now, offensively, he's batting .294. He's got a .392 on-base percentage, which right now, besides William Contreras, is second on the team. Obviously, William Contreras is just putting out-of-this-world numbers right now. He's at .426 for on-base percentage, which is second best in the major leagues behind Mookie Betts right now. But nothing short of Joey Ortiz, .392. That's still a very good on-base percentage, way over league average. And also that to go along with an .834 OPS for a third baseman. League average for that stat is .698, which OPS, for those of you, if you're not quite sure what that stat is, kind of takes into account on-base percentage and slugging percentage combined, which slugging percentage basically accounts for more of the hitting for power, so home runs, doubles, triples, which he's had a couple of triples already this season, has had some doubles, and obviously added his 5th home run on that day on Friday. So just showing some really good approach at the plate. Like I said, I think he's got one of the better opposite field approaches on the team that I've seen. He hits to the opposite field with authority, gets some high exit velocity on the balls to opposite field. So I think he really does a nice job with his at-bats, as of late. I think in the last 3 weeks to a month or so, we've seen a lot better consistent at-bats after really getting off to a little bit of a slow start and a struggle to begin the season. So I think part of that might have to do also, he was struggling at defense to begin the season, recorded those 3 errors there early on. But since then, he's been really sound on defense. I think maybe those early struggles maybe caused him to struggle a little bit at the plate too. Maybe kind of focusing too much and thinking too much on the defensive end about what he needs to improve and putting in, more, I guess, specifying his work to working on defense. So maybe with some more confidence and more consistency at third base now, I'm guessing that also plays along with him, having a better bat and having more confidence at the plate as well. So I think kind of full circle, like I said, for Joey Ortiz. I think he's really coming around, solidifying himself and having a spot on this roster and being one of the better offensive players for the Milwaukee Brewers so far as of late, and he continues to hit at a very high rate. So congrats to him. Really happy to see him doing well in his rookie year, so really good to see that, and hopefully he's able to continue that, as it just adds really good things for the middle of the lineup and the bottom of the lineup for the Milwaukee Brewers, and certainly has here as of late. So really that's the main thing that I wanted to talk about here. Had some time there to cover what we talked about with the previous games, and then really just wanted to touch on the success and the recent success that we've seen from Joey Ortiz, kind of a guy that I don't think a lot of us probably had a lot of high hopes for this season. We were hoping, I'm sure, to see some development and see some more mediocre numbers, but right now he's hitting really well, been one of the better hitters and arguably one of the best hitters right now for the Milwaukee Brewers lineup. So hopefully he's able to continue that, and like I said, just kind of a standout player and really a surprise player so far for the Milwaukee Brewers to this point. So with that, just kind of after that, just pretty much wrapping up here what I wanted to talk about. As you guys know, BrewPod Between the Lines podcast is always available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and other mainstream podcast sites. So please feel free to jump to any of those sites and listen to this podcast from wherever it is you may like in the future. I can always be reached on social media using @brew_pod on Twitter, or by searching BrewPod Between the Lines podcast on Facebook or Instagram. Hopefully you guys have had a good weekend to this point so far. Finals finally wrapped up for me, so I am pretty much free of any school work. Going to be starting full-time work here on Monday, but hopefully you're able to dive into some more interesting topics regarding the Brewers, maybe dive into some more statistical things that I've been wanting to. There was a recent thing released by the MLB, some really interesting, actually, offensive stats that I haven't really gotten to spend as much time as I've wanted to, specifically with swinging the bat for offensive stats. We've got some new bat speed data that the MLB has released that also takes into account swing length, and there's also a blast rate that kind of takes into account the bat speed and barrel rate, which right now William Contreras, as far as I know, is leading the major leagues in that category. But I'm going to spend some time here in the next couple days, kind of dive into some of those stats and learn about that a little bit, as it's definitely an interesting addition to the offensive aspects of different stats and whatnot. And hopefully I'm able to learn some more on that. And I think what I'd like to do is kind of put out an episode to kind of explain some of that to you guys on what I've learned, and just give some more outlook and just some more information on what that regards and exactly what that means. So thinking I might include that in a completely separate episode. Not exactly sure yet on how that's going to go, but I'm gonna take a look and a dive into that and see what that's all about, and I'll get back to you guys on that at some point here as we progress into the episodes coming up. So with that covers everything I wanted to talk about. Like I said, hopefully you guys have a good rest of the weekend and a good move into the week. And with that, we will see you guys next time. Talk to you soon, and of course, go Brewers.